Have Plantation extra old 20th anniversary. This is a Maison Ferrand product. Barbados rum, 40% alcohol, 80 proof, chill filtered. Yep, color added, absolutely. And it is dosed, super dosed. It's dosed to the maximum amount of sugar you can have and still call it rum. So it is still rum, but it is dosed. I think it's 20 grams per liter, the maximum amount of dosage. And this is a mix of 12 and 20-year-old ex-bourbon aged in Barbados and then shipped to France and finished 12 to 18 months in foreign cognac casks. That being said, for 12 to 20-year-old rum finished in cognac and all kinds of, it's not that expensive. So I feel like it's their worst barrels, but we'll give it a fair shot. Stuff that's that old and super dosed. Gonna have to assume that they weren't the premium. It wasn't the premium stuff. um, but yeah, Plantation. This is now known as Plantaray for a we'll say social reasons they've chosen to rename to Plantaray. And they do own a distillery in Barbados. So this is probably all stuff from their own distillery in Barbados, but a lot of their stuff is actually not their own. They do plenty of sourcing and bottling of other distilled rums, but this one in particular, I imagine, is all their own Barbados juice. And like I said, this is most certainly color added, despite the fact that you got lots of age and cognac casks. I'm almost certain this is still color added, and is almost certainly chill filtered, and it is 100% dosed to 20 grams. It has got plenty of sugar added, and some people would say that sugar added in rum um, is just a cover for crappy liquid. Maybe true. I don't try to judge too much on the profile. Sometimes a little bit of sugar could do something um, unique, but for the most part, some people believe that like when you turbo sugar dose this stuff, it's because the actual spirits are not that good, um, which would kind of make some amount of sense considering they're old as hell and finished and not that expensive. You might think that the sugar is there to help some weak barrels. But I'm not 100% sure. This is all speculation. Because you would think the price might be higher if it was not the case. It's still quite affordable for, like, we'll say, you could put a 13-year age statement on this. Now, in rum, 12-year age statement is not that expensive. Of course, a lot of 12-year-old Caribbean rums are like $50. So, um, it being 12 years maybe doesn't look the best, but I think somewhat since they have this is a 20th anniversary release and there's like a 20 right here. Maybe they're trying to play on the 20, maybe make people think it's like 20, but it's very much at best 13 years old. What? I'm up here and you're down there. So again, we're going to give this 25 points on aroma, 25 points on palate, 25 points on finish, 10 points for texture, and 15 points for my personal experience. Seems pretty thin on the glass for the most part. It's not terribly thick. Are you terribly thick? Sometimes. Yeah. Well, I can't very well put this down and just cater to you. This is one of those segments where you're gonna have to sit and chill or get down. Are you gonna sit and chill or get down? We can't have any walkers. Why are you rubbing your butt on the Jameson bottle? That's rude, Adria. Okay. No, no, no. Down. Down. Down or gone. You're gonna have a seat? Okay. I mean, I need that. No, you're not gonna have a seat? Okay. I'm gonna give you a chance to have a seat. But we're gonna get fur all over the glass otherwise. Alright, we'll see you a little bit later. I don't need extra tasting notes. Right immediately, there's like caramel, butterscotch, very slight woody note. Not as like, not super expressive. There's like a dry woodiness about it. If there's molasses, it's really minor. It's kind of really feels more dry woodiness, um, butterscotch caramel sort of thing. But the nose is not that expressive. It's definitely not that loud. It's kind of like a gingerbread character. You know, like gingerbread, slight butterscotch caramel, dry woodiness. I don't even want to say it's an oakiness. It kind of feels more like a woodiness. Something feels like bready about it though, which is kind of odd. There's something coming across a little bready. Um, and yeah, I go with like gingerbread cookie. Not a whole lot else. Not a whole lot else there. And again, I'm sure that is color added. Although, really, maybe, I mean, it might not be very much color. Uh, it doesn't seem that dark. And for the ages that I understand that these are, it might not be that bad. But definitely chill filtered and definitely dosed. All right, so on the palate, cheers. Actually, expression is not that bad on the palate. You get a good amount of sweetness out of it. You get a good amount of that butterscotch caramel, slight gingerbread spice, slight woodiness. Now, it could be that the fact that the palate is pretty expressive, we have to take into consideration that it is dosed very heavily. So a lot of that sweetness, while it's not at the forefront coming across super artificial, definitely the punch, I think, in the sweetness of the palate is contributed to by the fact that there's sugar added. But I'm not super duper, I'm not going to give it like a black mark because of that. A lot of people would say, well, black mark because there's sugar added, but we're just taking it as it comes. And we're just going to make it clear that it's very dosed. And if that's an asterisk for you, then it's an asterisk for you. Finish is not bad. Maybe like medium minus though, not terribly long. Same sort of notes. Not much development. Kind of what's the nose, is the palate, is the finish. Palate seems like the best part. Again, maybe sugar related, but palate seems pretty good. Nose is lacking. It's kind of sometimes hunting, sometimes one note. All notes are very low in expressiveness. Definitely like gingerbread, sweet, caramel, butterscotch, slight oakiness. No like mention of like cognac casking. I kind of would have expected like some more like winey character, some of that cognac influence. Supposedly there's 1 to 1.5 years months, 1 to 1.5 years finished in cognac. Couldn't tell you that based on what I'm getting. I'm not really getting like the grape must or a winey note or anything like that. Like maybe suggested it's like really deep in there, but it's hard to find. Like I'd maybe give it like a whisper. We'll say like a whisper of like of a cognac note, like a winey cognac note. Definitely the nose is not the best to work with. Still those butterscotch caramels on the palate, some oak, some gingerbread spice. Finish kind of gets into that molasses. A little bit of butteriness in there, actually. Yeah, finish is like, we'll say medium minus. Molasses sweetness, some butterscotch, some oak. some spice. All right, we're going to go through one more sip. But the nose isn't really giving me anything else. There is a little bit of a grapey, cognac-y thing in the palate. It's really took a while to get at it though. Maybe a little bit of it on the finish too. It's not the worst. Like the nose is probably the worst part, and the palate is probably the best part. So length of finish, we'll say definitely is like medium minus. This is like the lowest. This nose is like the lowest possible good score. Like, I mean, I don't even want to give it a good score to be honest. It's like 11. It's like 11 and 25. Gotta change something. There's a good breadth of notes. It's just they're really muted. Maybe as a fresh bottle, it might be a little better, but I don't think it would change the world here. Like they're muted enough that even if they were turned up a bit, it wouldn't be good. All right. Palate's pretty good though. Probably have to give it 15 on the palate. Palate's pretty nice. There is one part of it that's like I'm disagreeing with though. There's like some kind of note in there. There's some kind of like off bitter note in there somewhere that's not the best. I don't know what I would call it. It's not like super off-putting like Sharpie, but it's a weird chemically bitter sort of thing. That's kind of like undercurrent, slightly metallic thing. All right, we're gonna focus on the finish. Molasses, kind of very whispery, whiny character. Oak, some gingerbread, some butterscotch. Not the worst, actually. Call it 14. All right, I'm gonna think about the texture. Out of 10, how thin is it? It's not thick. I call this thin. I'm gonna give it like 3. 3 out of 10 on texture. It's not very thick at all. It's not super watery. I feel like some of that sugar is saving it a little bit, but it's really not got the mouthfeel. It just doesn't. All right, so out of 15, how do I feel about my experience with this rum? The nose is very not great. It's quite lacking. The palate's got some tasty notes, but there's something a little off about it. There's some kind of weird undercurrent there that's not great. It feels a little off. There is some nice tasty notes in there. I like some of the fact that the cognac eventually kind of showed itself. There is, you know, some gingerbread spice, some splash of wood. You do get that butterscotch caramel thing, not quite molasses. There's a few things going on, but there's something else in there, some kind of like undercurrent of kind of slightly bitter, slightly metallic something that's just not great. It's not my favorite part. I wouldn't reach this for this. Even if I wanted a sweet palate, I'm not sure I would reach for this. Just because there's a weird thing going on in the palate. The intensity of the palate is great. The breadth of notes is pretty good. But there's just something weird about some kind of weird, slightly bitter, slightly metallic undercurrent that kind of goes through the whole thing. That's not to my preference. That being said, it's not doing anything spectacular compared to the other rums that I have that are maybe even cheaper. It's not really accomplishing anything new and interesting. And we're trying to ignore the fact that they had to use sugar to do it. So I'll call this 3 out of 15 a forgettable rum. I slept in this morning was great. That's worth more. That's worth more than hearing about this forgettable rum. 26, 36, 40, 46? 30, 40, 46. We call this okay. This was an okay rum. It was okay. It was okay.